Across America, a profound shift is underway. Churches, once vibrant community hubs, are increasingly quiet. The youngest generation, Gen Z, appears to be disengaging from Christianity at an unprecedented rate. This phenomenon prompts critical questions for religious leaders, researchers, and society at large. What factors underpin this significant departure, and what might it signify for the future landscape of faith? For generations, Christianity was not merely a belief system, it was deeply interwoven with the fabric of American culture. Baby boomers, for instance, grew up in an era where Sunday service was often a societal expectation, a cornerstone of community life. This cultural embeddedness provided a default pathway into religious observance. Millennials, while experiencing some erosion of this cultural norm, still inherited a significant degree of religious tradition. Many attended church as children, maintaining a connection, however tenuous, to institutional faith. In regions like the American South, churches historically served as central pillars, shaping social calendars and community identity. However, as Gen Z came of age, the cultural ground had already shifted dramatically. The pervasive influence of religious institutions on daily life had waned considerably. This generation entered a world where secularism was increasingly normalized, and religious affiliation was no longer a given. The reasons behind Gen Z's growing disinterest in traditional Christianity are complex and interconnected. It is not a singular rejection, but rather a response to a confluence of societal, technological, and institutional factors. Understanding these drivers is crucial for any meaningful discussion or potential adaptation. Gen Z is the first truly digital native generation. They have grown up in an era of unprecedented information access and instant communication. This constant connectivity means that institutional failings, once potentially contained or obscured, are now immediately and widely disseminated. News of church scandals, whether involving financial impropriety, abuse, or ethical lapses, spreads rapidly across social media platforms. This constant exposure to institutional shortcomings has profoundly eroded trust. For a generation that values authenticity and transparency, perceived hypocrisy within religious organizations becomes a significant barrier. The gap between stated religious ideals and observed institutional behavior is starkly visible. This discrepancy leads to a fundamental questioning of the integrity of religious leadership and the institutions they represent. Consequently, many young people conclude that these institutions do not align with their core values. For many young people, the church environment has become increasingly indistinguishable from political arenas. Sermons and congregational discussions often veer into partisan political commentary, alienating those who seek spiritual solace or ethical guidance. This conflation of faith and politics can be deeply problematic. When religious leaders align their institutions with specific political ideologies or parties, it can create an exclusionary atmosphere. Young people who often hold diverse political views may feel that their spiritual home has been co-opted by agendas that do not reflect their own. This can transform a sanctuary into a source of division. The perception that religious institutions are primarily concerned with political power rather than spiritual growth or community welfare is a significant deterrent. It suggests a deviation from core religious missions, making the church appear less relevant to personal spiritual journeys. This politicization can overshadow genuine faith. Gen Z is characterized by a profound intellectual curiosity and a willingness to challenge established norms. They ask difficult questions about the compatibility of scientific understanding with religious dogma, the evolving nature of human sexuality, and the complexities of personal identity. These inquiries are often central to their worldview. Unfortunately, many traditional religious institutions are perceived as unwilling or unable to engage with these questions constructively. Responses that demand unquestioning belief or that dismiss scientific consensus are often met with skepticism. This approach can feel intellectually stifling to a generation that values critical thinking. Issues surrounding LGBTQ+ inclusion are particularly salient. Many young people find it difficult to reconcile messages of divine love and acceptance with institutional policies that exclude or condemn LGBTQ+ individuals. This perceived inconsistency can lead to a profound sense of moral dissonance and alienation. Gen Z is arguably the most diverse generation in history, encompassing a wide spectrum of racial, ethnic, and gender identities. They inherently value inclusivity and expect institutions to reflect this diversity in both rhetoric and practice. This expectation extends to religious communities. Many traditional churches are perceived as failing to adequately embrace this diversity. Policies or cultural norms that appear exclusionary, particularly towards LGBTQ+ individuals or those from non-traditional backgrounds, are immediately noticeable. This creates an environment where many young people feel unwelcome or marginalized. The adherence to what are perceived as outdated social norms or rigid interpretations of Scripture can clash with Gen Z's progressive values. They seek communities that champion social justice, equality, and radical acceptance. When churches fall short of these ideals, young people often look elsewhere for belonging. A significant and growing trend among Gen Z is the identification as knowns, individuals who report no religious affiliation. This does not necessarily equate to atheism or a complete rejection of spirituality. Rather, it often signifies a disinterest in or disillusionment with organized religion. Many nones still express belief in a higher power or a spiritual dimension to life. However, they prefer to explore these aspects outside the confines of traditional institutions. They seek personal, individualized spiritual paths that are not bound by dogma, hierarchy, or specific denominational structures. This shift reflects a desire for autonomy and spiritual exploration. It suggests that for many young people, the benefits once exclusively offered by religious institutions, community, meaning, ethical guidance, are now being sought and found through alternative avenues. The concept of spiritual but not religious has become a defining characteristic. The disengagement from traditional Christianity does not imply a void of meaning or purpose for Gen Z. Instead, this generation is actively forging new pathways for spiritual exploration, community building, and ethical engagement. Their approach to faith is often personal, fluid, and highly adaptable. Many young people are drawn to practices like meditation and mindfulness, seeking inner peace and self-awareness outside of religious frameworks. These practices offer tools for navigating stress and fostering mental well-being, resonating with a generation acutely aware of mental health challenges. The focus is often on individual experience. New Age spirituality, with its emphasis on personal growth, cosmic connection, and diverse belief systems, also attracts some. This allows for a highly individualized approach to spirituality, free from institutional constraints. It offers a sense of wonder and connection without rigid doctrines. Activism and social justice movements provide another powerful avenue for meaning and community. For many Gen Z individuals, working towards a more equitable and just world is a deeply spiritual endeavor. These movements offer a sense of purpose, collective action, and moral clarity that some find lacking in traditional churches. Online communities and close-knit friendships also serve as vital spaces for connection and shared values. These digital and interpersonal networks can provide the sense of belonging and mutual support that was once a primary function of religious congregations. They offer flexibility and inclusivity. For Gen Z, faith is often a highly personalized journey, characterized by flexibility and continuous evolution. It is not confined to stained glass windows or pulpits, but is instead woven into their daily lives, their relationships, and their engagement with the world. This approach prioritizes individual experience over institutional adherence. The current trajectory suggests that Christianity could face a significant decline in cultural dominance within a single generation. This presents a critical juncture for religious institutions. The choices made today will profoundly shape the future landscape of faith in America. Some churches are actively attempting to adapt, recognizing the need for fundamental change. These institutions are often characterized by a greater emphasis on social justice, radical inclusivity, and open dialogue. They prioritize community engagement and authentic spiritual exploration over rigid dogma. Conversely, other religious institutions are choosing to double down on traditional doctrines and practices. This approach, while appealing to some existing members, risks further alienating Gen Z. It creates a widening chasm between institutional offerings and the values of the younger generation. Regardless of the path taken, The future of faith in America is being actively rewritten. This process is not merely a demographic shift, it represents a profound cultural and spiritual reorientation. Understanding these dynamics is essential for religious leaders, researchers, and anyone concerned with societal values. Gen Z is not necessarily rejecting God or spirituality itself. Instead, they are critically evaluating and often rejecting a version of Christianity they perceive as politically entangled, institutionally hypocritical, and culturally out of touch. This distinction is vital for accurate analysis. The narrative is far from complete. However, one conclusion is clear. The traditional model of faith in America is undergoing an unprecedented transformation. The future will undoubtedly look different from the past, demanding thoughtful engagement and a willingness to adapt from all stakeholders. This is the Scholar's Ledger, where history, faith, and power are revealed. Like, share, subscribe, and join the search for truth.